Good evening, everyone. It is March 4th, 2019. Please rise for the pledge for the Liquor Commission hearing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Last week we lost another member of our community leaders. I would like a moment of silence for Ken Brady. Thank you. Please be seated. Simpson, roll call, please.
Commissioner Vogel?
Here.
Commissioner Papantos? Present. Commissioner Vito?
Here.
Commissioner Kruger? Present. Commissioner Lang?
Here.
Chairperson Horker?
Here. We have before you the minutes of the special meeting of February 4th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee Vogel. Second was Commissioner Vogel. Was second Commissioner Papantos. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Chairperson Horker?
Yes. Citizens' concerns and comments. Clerk Simpson?
There are none.
Oh, excellent. Moving right along. Mr. Spondilis.
If the clerk could read the item.
Okay, no, that's okay. New business, consideration of request for a Class L liquor license from NJET Cancer Wellness Center for an event to be held at 743 Sumac Road on March 23rd, 2019.
Now, Mr. Spondilis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As the title indicates, this is a request for a Class L liquor license for an event to be held on Saturday, March 23rd from 1 to 5 p.m. and then again from 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. There's an expectation of 700 to 800 people to be in attendance at a Wine Whiskey Bravo. This is a wine and spirit tasting fundraiser event associated with the Cancer Wellness Center. I am happy to answer any questions. There are three conditions that I would ask any motion be a part of. First, submittal of a certificate of insurance naming the Village of Wheeling and Chicago Executive Airport as additional insured parties. 2, submittal of proof of Bassett certification for all applicable personnel. And 3, payment of all fees.
Commissioner Lang.
Thank you. 700 to 800 participants, that's a lot of cars. So do they have parking provisions, I would imagine?
I am told that they do. It is divided between 2 separate events, but I believe the petitioner is here and can answer that question specifically.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kyle Kaczynski, and I'm on behalf of Special Events Management. We're helping all do all the logistics for Cancer Wellness and NJET. I'm the event manager for the event, and this is Hank Zamola. He is the owner of Special Events Management. That participant rate will definitely be lower based on our ticket sales. It'll most likely be only 150 to 200 people per session, totaling 400. And then our parking is going to be a valet parking. So, and since it's at the airport, no guests will be allowed to park themselves. We'll be having a private valet service that all attendees will be able to use as soon as they get there. And then where they're going to be parking actually on the airport is going to be a barricaded, fenced-in area where only the valet drivers will be able to drive.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos.
Yes, thank you. Do you know how many other events they've had of this nature? Is this the second, third, or the first? Or?
This will be the first event that NJET themselves are going to be doing at their hangar, but at the Chicago Executive Airport, I believe they have a fireworks display that they use where vehicles are allowed to park on the runway in the summertime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Papantos. Any other questions? If there are no other questions from the Commission, I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Give the motion to Commissioner Lang, second to Commissioner Vogel. That is, of course, with the conditions as read. Yes, yes. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Chairperson Horker?
Yes. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion, Commissioner Papantos, second Commissioner Kruger. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn the Liquor Commission hearing for the evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Village Board.
Thank you.
You're good to go. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Village Board for March 4th, 2019. Clerk Simpson, roll call.
Trustee Vogel?
Present.
Trustee Papantos?
Present.
Trustee Vito?
Here.
Trustee Kruger?
Present.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
President Horker?
Here, you have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of February 19th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee Lang, second, Trustee Papantos. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Manager Spondilis, any changes to the agenda?
There are. I would like to ask if you would make a motion, or if you would ask for a motion, please, to remove items 13A and 13B from new business.
So moved. Second.
Motion, Trustee Papantos, second, Trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Clerk Simpson, proclamations and congratulations.
I got another wrong word here. I had him in the wrong order, okay. Social Work Month, March 2019, Elevate Social Work. The social work profession is dedicated to enhancing well-being and helping meet the basic needs of all people, especially those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. This year's Social Work Month theme, Elevate Social Work, embodies the need to recognize the extraordinary contributions of the profession to our society. The social work profession is expected to grow faster than average over the next 7 years, with more than 682 people expected to be employed as social workers by 2026. Social workers elevate and empower people, giving them the ability to solve problems, cope with personal roadblocks, and get the resources they need to succeed. The social work profession is deeply weaved into our society, with social workers active in government, schools, universities, social service agencies, communities, corporations, the military, and in healthcare and mental health care settings. Social workers are the largest group of providers of mental health services in the United States. Social workers travel across the nation and world to help people in crisis, helping them overcome issues such as death and grief, epidemics, and natural disasters such as wildlife, hurricanes, and floods. Social workers for decades have been in the forefront on social justice, pushing for equal rights for women, African Americans, Latinos, people who are disabled, people who are LGBTQ, and various ethnic, cultural, and religious groups. The social work profession for more than a century has been on the cutting edge of helping create changes to make our society a better place to live, including voting rights, improved workplace safety, minimum wage, and social safety net programs that help prevent poverty and hunger. Social workers stand ready to help our society overcome current pressing issues. Therefore, in recognition of the numerous contributions made by social workers, Patrick Horker, President of the Village of Wheeling, proclaims the month of March 2019 as National Social Work Month and calls upon all citizens to join the National Association of Social Workers in the Village of Wheeling in celebration and support of the social work profession.
Thank you, Clerk Simpson. This, we have a plaque for, in recognition of the month, that will be presented to Sherry Huizar.
Correct.
Who is our social worker.
Yes.
Ready? Can I
Yes,
go?
please.
Okay. National Athletic Training Month, March 2019. Athletic trainers have a long history of providing quality health care for athletes and those engaged in physical activity based on specific tasks, knowledge, and skills acquired through their nationally regulated educational processes. Athletic trainers provide prevention of injuries, recognition, evaluation, and aggressive treatment, rehabilitation, healthcare administration, education and guidance, compassionate care for all. The National Athletic Trainers Association represents and supports 44,000 members of the athletic training professions employed in many settings, including professional sports, college and universities, high schools, clinics and hospitals, corporate and industrial settings, performing arts, military branches. Leading organizations concerned with athletic training and healthcare have joined together in a common desire to raise public awareness of the importance of the athletic training profession and to emphasize the importance of quality healthcare within the aforementioned settings. Such an effort will improve healthcare for athletes and those engaged in physical activity and promote athletic training as healthcare professionals. Patrick Corker, President of the Village of Wheeling, do hereby proclaim the month of March as National Athletic Training Month in the Village of Wheeling and urge all citizens of Wheeling to learn more about the importance of athletic training.
To receive the award tonight, we have, please forgive me, Mr. Dave Jerby. He's the athletic director from District 214. No, you're not. I'll come over there. Do you have anybody to take a picture? Don't. Clerk Simpson, if you please.
Ken Brady Day, March 5th, 2019. Kenneth R. Ken Brady served as a trustee of the Village of Wheeling from May 2nd, 2005 until his passing on February 23rd, 2019. During his time on the Board of Trustees, Ken Brady worked consistently to ensure that the Village of Wheeling provided all its residents and businesses with high-quality public services and treated all its citizens and stakeholders with dignity and fairness. As a skilled carpenter and experienced construction project manager, Ken Brady contributed expertise in building and code review, as well as an enthusiasm to see Wheeling grow and thrive. Prior to his service on the village board, Ken Brady also served on the Wheeling Plan Commission for 17 years, where he reviewed projects that have had a transformative effect on Wheeling streetscapes, among them the Weston Chicago North Shore, Prairie Crossing, Prairie Park condominiums, and redevelopment of the Dundee and Milwaukee commercial quarters. Ken Brady's good judgment and civic engagement have benefited Wheeling in a number of capacities. Through his service not only on the Board of Trustees and the Plan Commission, but also with organizations such as the Wheeling Garden Club, the Wheeling Historical Society, Wheeling Helping Hands, and the Knights of Columbus. Ken Brady's compassionate dedication to his family, to his neighbors, and to a life of public service testifies to his status as an exemplary citizen in whom the entire Wheeling community can rightfully take pride. Therefore, Patrick Corker, President of the Village of Wheeling, does hereby proclaim March 5th, 2019 as Ken Brady Day in the Village of Wheeling and calls upon the residents of Wheeling to join in honoring his memory in recognition of his lifetime of service.
I can do whatever I want. Ms. Brady, I would like you to come up here, and then I would like the trustees, if you would all like to say something, please. I'll start at this end. Trustee Kruger, just share a thought or a memory or something.
Well, Ken was certainly a great steward of service and trust to this community. I've always likened him as the biggest guy with the biggest heart. I got to witness firsthand over the last 6 years that, and as well as him being a loving husband and a doting father to his daughters and a great dog dad to Duke and Daisy. I thank the family for sharing him with us, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have served with him.
Thank you. Trustee Lang?
Well, I was very fortunate to serve with Ken on the new and improved Plan Commission that started in 2001. And we combined the zoning board and the Plan Commission together. And going to those meetings with Ken as the chairman was like going to school. He taught all of us so much about building and construction, and of course what to look out for in shady developers. He taught us to be cautious and protect Wheeling from cheap construction methods that will cause problems down the road. I walked away from that experience demanding only the best construction to this day and ideas for a better Wheeling. Wheeling is a much better place because of Ken Brady. On a side note, tremendous friend, what a great family man. I just will totally miss him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk Simpson?
My special moment of Ken, he's been a good neighbor and a good friend, was when I first, must have been at the beginning of our friendship with him. And for some unknown reason, which I still don't know today, we had a barbecue in our backyard in November. And Ken came to the barbecue with a Russian hat on his head, and he brought his own heater. And he set the heater down, and he did something wrong with the heater, and it started our picnic table on fire. But he was a dear friend. He was always there for me and my husband. He was a good neighbor.
Trustee Vito?
Yeah, Trustee Brady was just an all-around good guy. When I started getting involved in the village, he always treated me like a long-lost nephew. And every time he would see you, he would just smile, and he always had a smile on his face. Just a great family man, a great community guy. You know, guys like him and Dave, you know, the Knights of Columbus guys that, you know, just always serving the community. That's a dying breed. Not for telling anything, Dave, but I mean, you know, they don't make them like that anymore. You know, the guys that would just do anything for the community, be a part of the parish, be there. I had a lot of uncles like that, and you know, they don't make them like that anymore, and he's going to be sorely missed in this community.
Thank you. Trustee Papantos?
Thank you. No matter what you believe, I can guarantee you that Ken is looking down on us, will somehow be guiding every decision this board makes, especially when it comes to construction and what direction we're going with the village. He took such pride in the town center and the building and how Wheeling is growing, and it's something that he always wanted to participate in. And I don't think we'd be where we are today without his guidance.
Thank you. Trustee Vogel?
It's hard to put into words what Ken meant to his family, his three daughters, who he affectionately referred to as the Three Stooges, are number 1, 2, and 3. I found out in his telephone today, and his wife, his friends, the village, and his church. He's always been there. You never had to ask him twice to do anything. Every time he saw me, it was, "Hey, little buddy, are you still pushing a pencil?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Stick to it, because you don't know the difference between a hammer and a nail." But he was, like I said, he was always there to help us. If you go throughout look and drive through the village sometime, just about all the new construction over the last 20 years, Village Hall, Public Works Building, the Town Center, and they mentioned Prairie Park and a couple others. The social hall next door at St. Joe's all have Ken's footprint on it. And he did it all just out of the goodness of his heart. Didn't expect anything in return. Didn't expect a thank you. Just did it because he felt that was the right thing to do, and because he loved his community. And we all loved him, and we're going to miss him. So thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Trustee Vogel. Ken Brady. Oh, my God. Is that better? Yeah. So, Ken Brady was a person that was and is a role model for all the young people of this community. He lived the life that you always think that you're supposed to. He was the husband, the father. He was active in his community. This man led the life that anyone else, if they're floundering, if they're looking for direction, if they look towards Ken's life, this is a role model for anybody in our community or anybody in our state or country.
And we were truly blessed to have him among us. We didn't always agree, but this man, he really was. He deserved everyone's respect. He lived his life the way you should. He contributed. He gave more than he got. It was an honor to work with him. We have a few small tokens that certainly are nowhere near worth what he gave, but we would like you to have would it go over his headstone? It's honorary Ken Brady way, and of course, so we would like you to have a flag of Wheeling. Again, they're just small tokens, nowhere near worth, equal to the contributions that he gave this village. But thank you so much for sharing Ken with us. Just thank you.
Appreciate everyone's kindness.
Want to say anything, or you want to run away? Okay. Thank you for coming.
Maybe you want to say.
You want to? No.
Want to keep this?
It's all yours. Yes, it's nothing. It's all yours. Thank you so much.
To Ken.
Yes, please.
As much as you love my dad, he loved being on this board. You guys respected him and you respected me just as much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask for a 5-minute recess for anyone who would like to, has nothing else to do this evening. Motion for a recess?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion trustee Kruger, second trustee Vogel,
Wait,
just for a recess.
Kruger, Vito?
Yes.
No, wait, all in favor, okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5 minutes, that'll be 7 o'clock. We'll reconvene.
have some business to tend to. You're going to explain this?
Oh, yeah, that's just right, that's for you.
Oh, thanks. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Village of Wheeling back to order. If I could have a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Kruger, second,
I'll second.
or not, Trustee Lang. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Clerk Simpson.
Consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Citizen comments.
Yes, citizens.
I'm sorry. I had
Citizens' comments, please.
members of the public may address the board with comments regarding only those items that are relevant to village business. No citizen shall speak for more than 5 minutes without consent of the board. Members of the general public who wish to address the board must sign the request to speak form prior to the commencement of the public meeting. Ms. Wilson?
Good evening. I'm Deborah Wilson, and last week, or the last meeting, I talked to Dave Vogel, Trustee Dave Vogel, and we talked a little bit about the next public engagement meeting for the airport. And I asked him about perhaps getting it at a larger venue. Trustee Vogel, you said you weren't really sure how Prospect Heights would feel about it. You would look into it. And I'm just wondering what has, I was kind of excited to see that you were amendable to that. And I was just wondering, when you spoke to Nick Helmer, how did that go about, getting it in a larger venue?
We can talk later.
All right, well, I certainly look forward to that. And just one thing I saw at the Plan Commission the other night, there was a man, the House of Rental, who's been here for 40 years. And he was having some issues with the fence and being very costly, and it was $20,000. I'm not sure what a business budget's like. Perhaps he was playing hardball, saying he'd have to close down if he had to pay that much. I'm not sure, but I'd hate to lose it. When a business is working and working well, I'd hate to lose it. I'm just wondering, is there any kind of 0% interest loan we could give him to help him be compliant without losing his business in the village? Perhaps nothing. Okay, well, I'd hate to lose him. He's been here 40 years, so I'm not sure if that was a negotiating tactic, but I would just hate to lose that revenue. Thanks.
Mr. Belgorski?
Good evening. Pretty routine subject. Chicago Executive Airport. On February 20th, it was a board meeting at Chicago Executive. Unfortunately, plenty of people. It was a little bit stampede. And Director Lang, he is a board member of Chicago Executive, rightly asked the question about the state implementation group. He asked this question to the chief consultant, Mr. Pape, and I don't know if Mr. Lang was pretty comfortable with this response, but Mr. Pape misled you, Mr. Lang, unfortunately. And I wrote the letter to Director Lang the same day. Unfortunately, I don't have any response, so I can briefly read this letter in regards to correcting Mr. Pape. I would like to, dear Director Lang, I would like to correct the statement of CMT consultant Mr. Pape made today during the Chicago Executive Board of Directors in response to a question about the public participation in stakeholder involvement group. Intentionally or not, Mr. Pape has misled the directors and the public that stakeholders implementation group is not designed for the ordinary residents of the communities, Wheeling and Prospect Heights. This is completely untrue, just an opposite to the SIG master plan, free stakeholder involvement plan prepared by CMT in 2018, page 6 and 7. Stakeholder, this is a quote from a stakeholder involvement plan. The public involvement program will be conducted in accordance with the airport guidance, is intended to lead to outcomes that are in harmony with the community. Those outcomes are arrived through the exploration and gathering of input by a full range of stakeholders. A stakeholder is anyone who could have an interest or concern about the master plan update and its outcome. This includes property owners, business owners, state, local officials, special interest groups, and users and tenants of Chicago Executive Airport. Stakeholders for this project may include, but not limited to, the following: residents, business owners, special interest group, etc. So residents should be there. Unfortunately, ordinary residents not represented by the stakeholder involvement group. And unfortunately, I wrote several times to Director Harris, Chairman Harris at the airport, and Jamie Abbott, and they even dodged my questions and questions by others, or just ignored and say nothing in response. So this is the point, I believe, right point for you as a trustees to understand the situation much better and to just address this issue sometime in the future. Thank you, and I will keep a letter to Mr. Lang for your records.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Liguori?
Hi, good evening. Mary Ann Liguori. I went to the airport board meeting. It was really overflowing. I had some concerns when I walked in, couldn't even get in. Chief McIsaac addressed it with me the next day, and I appreciate it. There were children there, and I just had visions of them getting trampled. There was too many people. It way overflowed. But I guess the chief was on it, so yay, that was good. I hope that there will be another venue or something larger to accommodate all of the people who want to go to this public meeting. Cook County did an exemption analysis for they just released this 2/25/2019. This is, I just didn't know if we can reach out to some, maybe Sherry can help. These are seniors that are missing homestead exemptions and a senior freeze exemption, so there's 67 missing the senior homestead, or possibly 95 missing the senior freeze exemption. And I don't know, there were some people on here that are patients of mine. I don't know if we can do some goodwill and maybe reach out to these seniors with maybe a letter so they don't get preyed upon other business people, just to tell them how to do this. The senior center, it's very low attendance from the seniors that I've talked to because of the construction and everything. So maybe a letter welcoming them back. Here's some ways that they can save some money. So can I give this to one of you? Would that be okay? Okay. The League of Women Voters is hosting a candidate forum. It is on Sunday, March 17th at 1 o'clock at the Indian Trails Public Library. It's to come out, meet your candidates. There's 3 trustee positions available every 2 years. And I think it's great there's 6 people running. I think it's fantastic. People love Wheeling that much. So anyway, I just wanted to make an announcement to come out, meet the candidates. You get to ask questions, and there'll be a forum, and it's a very disciplined forum on rebuttals and things you can ask. And as public, you should want to come out and meet them. Oh, and then there's this thing happening later on. You will be approving something that's going to be impactful to some residents. The backup beepers on semi-trucks they hit over 100 decibels. That will pierce through the homes of residents, of children, seniors, people who live there. And I don't know if there's something you can maybe talk to the developer about, of maybe moving the docks to the north side. I'm talking about the new spec building. And then there's going to be semi-trucks running parallel to this residential street that kids play on. Maybe we can figure something out to lessen the impact. Noise and pollution will be great, and it will be harmful to people. So if there's something that we can work out, maybe change, there's 15 loading docks that they're going to be putting feet from residents. So maybe they can put the loading docks on the north side of the building. Maybe they can have in and out on just the north side instead of, just because we don't know what they're going to be putting in there. It could be major transit. We can bring trucks 24/7 on our wheeling streets that will add to congestion. So if you can maybe help creatively think outside the box to help lessen the impact. There's children there, there's seniors there, there's families there, and this is feet from a residential neighborhood. So if you could figure out something and maybe speak up for the residents, you're elected to help protect us and take care of us. So I think that would be great if you can figure something else out as opposed to the way the plan is now. But thank you very much. You have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurry.
Ms. Allen?
Good evening. My name is Stacey Allen. I'm the Director of Development for Live for Lowly. Live for Lowly is a nonprofit located in the northwest suburbs, doing education, training, recovery, and grief support for those dealing with substance use disorder and their families. We are kicking off our 10-year anniversary, so I brought you guys invitations for that. And then I brought you guys a poster, so in case you didn't know, it's not heroin anymore, it's fentanyl. So fentanyl is in everything, in every street drug. And the death tolls and the death data in all counties in the Chicagoland show that we are impacted by fentanyl being introduced into our into drugs in the area. So I brought you a fentanyl poster. Our event is Thursday, March 14th at 6:30 p.m. You guys all have an invitation. We have a panel discussion led by State's Attorney Nierheim from Lake County. We'd love to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Ms. Horker?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Asher Horker. I'm not here to harass you with questions. It's not what this time is for. I'm here because I would like to clear up some inaccurate and unfounded conspiracies I've heard presented to the board during citizens' comments over the last several months in reference to the airport master plan. To ensure my understanding of the plan, I set up a meeting with Chicago Executive Airport Directors Jamie Abbott and George Sakis. They informed me that I was the only person to have reached out and asked for an in-depth explanation, which is likely why my view on it differs from others. I learned that the plan is a study conducted for regulatory purposes. It exists to show the FAA what improvements could be made with the property. The study's end goal is to keep the airport relevant and to meet the demands of current markets while remaining fiscally viable. It should be made clear that none of the hypothetical scenarios in the plan are required to be implemented. The final product of the study produces an overhead image of the currently owned airport property with outline changes the study determines could be made in the next 20 years. To maintain FAA funding and to remain financially viable, any and all potential changes are laid out for the FAA to scrutinize on the finalized plan. The idea of an extension was a simple part of the brainstorming aspect at the beginning of the study, a what if. This aspect was brought forward in the airport's open house and seems to be where other citizens and candidates became entrenched in their own misunderstandings. I'm not interested in perpetuating the self-serving fear-mongering and outlandish conspiracies of others who have not done their homework. CEA is one of the very few financially independent township-owned airports. The airport does not currently cost Wheeling taxpayers anything, but without conducting this study, they risk losing future FAA funds, as well as their continued relevance as an airport. This loss would mean losing their financial independence, thus costing Wheeling money. I have no interest in creating a financial burden for Wheeling, especially not by damaging a commercial entity that has proved capable of maintaining fiscal independence. Personally, I'm a strong proponent of research and fact-based decision-making, and this study exists to provide just that. It's an evaluation of potential and is conducted to retain federal funds in the best interest of the village and city of Prospect Heights. After my meeting with the airport directors and learning what the plan entailed, I would like to see the results of the study and see the board react to the results in accordance with the best interests of the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Horker.
That's it. Come on.
We have no staff reports this evening. Clerk Simpson, consent agenda.
Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all other agenda items. 11A, resolution authorizing acceptance of an amendment to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Illinois Department of Transportation, Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program, STEP, grant through federal fiscal year 2019. 11B, resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code for section 19-00087-00-RS. 11C, resolution authorizing acceptance of a previously bid National Joint Powers Alliance NJPA contract for the purchase of an emergency generator at North Station through Altorfer Power Systems in an amount not to exceed $119,300.
We have any questions or concerns from the board? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Trustee Papantos, second Trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, item A has been removed from the agenda, correct?
And A and B.
And B, so that brings us up to C.
13C. Ordinance granting a rezoning from R-1A Single Family Residential District and I-1 Light Industrial and Office District to I-2 Limited Industrial District for the southwest corner of Wolf Road and Kerry Lane, Wolf Road Industrial, docket number 2019-1.
Would you read D and E also, please?
Okay, 13D, ordinance granting site plan and appearance approval for Wolf Road Industrial Warehouse Building, docket number 19-1. 13E, resolution approving the preliminary plat of Wolf Road Industrial, southwest corner of South Wolf Road and Kerry Lane, docket number PC 19-2.
Mr. Jennings, enlighten us.
Thank you, President Horker. The petitioner, the Panatone Development Group, is proposing a series of three actions that are in combination would facilitate the construction of a speculative industrial building, 162,000 square foot warehouse building that's anticipated to be, at this point, probably divided into 3 tenant spaces. The first of the 3 actions is a rezoning action. The area that you see depicted here is a mix of I-1 and R-1A zoning. The area to the north of it is I-2 zoning. What the petitioner is proposing is to rezone this entire area represented in this graphic to I-2. That would facilitate the construction of the building that is shown in the second item, which is the docket 19-1, the site plan and appearance approval for the Wolf Road Industrial Warehouse Building. Both of those items are related to the third item, which is the preliminary plat of subdivision. The Plan Commission has reviewed all 3 of these items. The findings for the rezoning have been forwarded to you, along with the Plan Commission's recommendation, and then the other 2 items do not require findings of fact, but the Plan Commission recommendation is required on both of those as well. The petitioner is here to answer any questions you might have. Just briefly, docket number 19-1, which is the site plan and appearance approval for the construction of the building itself, has 5 conditions of approval from the Plan Commission recommendation. Those conditions of approval are in the draft ordinance for your review. This would be the second item that you would be voting on. I'll read them if you have any questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them. from the recommendation. Number one, the condition of approvals are the trash collection area shall be indicated on the floor plan prior to the issuance of a permit for the construction of the building. Number two, a berm shall be added along the south property line and the fence shall be added on top of the berm. Number three, fence height shall be increased to 8 feet. Number four, the tree planting height shall be increased within the south yard to work with staff on final design, which shall be reported back to the Plan Commission. And number five, any outdoor storage shall require review by the Plan Commission for a minor site plan revision. The third item, docket PC 19-2, which is the preliminary plat of subdivision, does also have a condition of approval in it, setting the stage for the review of the final plat. That condition reads, the village board's consideration of the final plat of subdivision shall also include a plat of vacation for the 3 village rights-of-way to be prepared by the petitioner. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and the petitioner is here as well.
Trustee Lang, you had some questions?
Thank you. I'll ask these of Andrew first. So many of our old buildings have, say, lower ceiling heights. And it seems like now that it's a pretty big thing to all the warehouses that I've seen that we've approved and are being built are higher ceiling heights. Is that a trend now that, we'll see more of?
Well, we've seen a handful just in recent years of speculative industrial buildings, and all of them have kept up with the construction trend for higher ceiling heights. That is more universally desirable, especially when you're building a spec building. You want to be attractive to the highest number of potential tenants.
And that's, I would imagine, increased storage and so on, and is one of the main reasons?
A variety of reasons, yes.
Okay, and so that's the difference between, or one of the differences between the two, the zoning of I-1 versus I-2.
That's correct. That's correct.
And I mean, just part of it. So that's why they're requesting an I-2, one of the reasons perhaps.
Yes.
Okay. And and going forward, we're probably going to expect some of the same of this throughout the village, is probably higher.
The speculative industrial buildings that you saw prior to this didn't require the rezoning in conjunction with the site plan and appearance approval, so you didn't see the petitioner trying to tailor the zoning district to the speculative building itself, but it is something that you do see is the higher building heights.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Papantos, you have some questions?
Thank you. For the petitioner. Sir?
Come on up. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm John Pagliari with Panatone Development Company.
Thank you, sir. How many spec buildings have you done in this area, and what phase are they in?
Let's see, over the last 10 years in the Chicagoland area, we probably built 60 to 70.
And how are they as far as occupancy?
They're all completely occupied.
And size-wise?
Size-wise, they range really from 100,000 feet to about 800,000 feet.
And what type typically of, and I know your crystal ball is probably as foggy as mine, what type of tenants do you usually get?
It's hard to say. It really depends on the sub-market you're building in. Here, we feel we'll see light assemblers, maybe some light manufacturing, warehouse distribution type users, office, warehouse folks. So kind of hard to say. We think of maybe 1 to 3 tenants occupying this building, so it really kind of depends on the size of each tenant.
Great. And thank you. I watched the PC meeting, and thank you for working with the Plan Commission to address the needs of the residents to the south of your building. And I think that's very good as far as the berm and the extra trees and the 8-foot fence. If I read the plans correctly, your dock doors are on the west side, correct?
West side, right, facing the
and that's
industrial
facing
behind us. Right.
Industrial. Okay, I just wanted to make sure about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Vogel?
Just one question for Mr. Jennings. It mentioned the berm in several places, but what's the height? I couldn't find it.
I don't think that we've settled on a height. They have the parking area to the north. They would have to be able to grade this properly from Deborah north to where their parking area starts. So I don't think that we've settled on anything yet, but I think the recommendation of the Plan Commission is to work with staff to design it, install the berm, and then the 8-foot fence would be on top of that.
Okay. You have any idea?
I would say it'd probably be a couple of feet, because you have, as Andrew pointed out, you have an area that you've got to make sure the detention runs away from that berm and is properly handled to our detention basin. So you kind of have to come up and then down and then catch it in a swale and then run it to your pond. So it's not just like it goes straight up and down.
That's what I was concerned of, is that
Yeah,
the
we're
water was
concerned
going
with
to
the
flow
water
away.
too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no other questions. Oh, wait, this is actually worth noting. We do have a map in the packet. Mr. Jennings, would you please explain the zoning to the north, west, and east of this lot?
Luca, are you able to advance the slide? Thank you.
There you go.
On the right, you see the proposed zoning. The zoning to the north of the subject property, which is shaded gray here, is I-2. The zoning to the west is a combination of I-1 and I-3. Zoning to the south is R1A, and the zoning to the east is the airport zoning district, which is AP.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any trustees? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions or comments, I would be looking for a motion on 13C.
So moved.
Motion to approve, that would be with the conditions as?
Yes, sir.
Motion, trustee Lang, second.
Second?
Trustee Papantos, roll call, please. We're going to do these one at a time.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Need a motion for item D.
So moved.
Trustee
Second.
Lang. Second, trustee Krueger.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Motion for item E.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Lang, second, trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Look forward to working with you.
13F?
Yes, ma'am.
13F, ordinance amending ordinance number 5034 and ordinance number 5154, which granted special use site plan approval for an indoor theater for Building J of the Wheeling Town Center Development, 351 West Dundee Road, docket number PC 195.
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. The anchor of the town center development from the retail standpoint is the CMX Theater. It's located on the west side of the Village Plaza, north of the apartment building. You've seen in front of you several times proposals for the build out of the theater building. The current proposal would modify the most recent approval that you had granted to the builder. This particular building is actually being built by CMX, which is distinguished from the other buildings of the town center development, which are built by the developer. CMX is simultaneously constructing other theater buildings throughout the country right now, and as they work on these buildings, they have refined their plan in response to the reaction as they open each theater. So their experience has led them to believe that the best way to approach this particular theater is to incorporate a full-service restaurant, and the way that they're doing that is in place of one of the auditoriums. So what you see at the bottom right-hand corner of the slide there is one of the theaters, one of the auditoriums being converted over to a 183-seat restaurant. It occupies about 4,500 square feet of the building. This is the kitchen for this restaurant would provide the food service to the in-theater dining. that had been previously approved as part of the development. This is slightly different. The last version of the in-theater dining was more of a grab-and-go sort of service. This is more full service. The petitioner at the Plan Commission hearing had described it in a way that you would order your food prior to the showtime, and it would be delivered to your seat during the showing of the movie. For the restaurant, the petitioner had indicated that there is no requirement to have a theater ticket to eat at the restaurant, so it would be full service and open to the public. Through the discussions with the developer and the restaurant, we had the staff had required an update to the traffic and parking study that was done. That traffic and parking study does indicate that the new operation would work. The parking would be adequate based on the peak hours for the business. Beyond that, the only item that was outstanding from the Plan Commission review was that the floor plan does include a modification to the trash enclosure that wasn't entirely clear in the 2018 approval. And so we've advised both the developer and the theater group that they do need to return to the Plan Commission for a minor site plan change to review the design and location of the trash enclosure, which will be on the west side of the building. So that'll come back to the Plan Commission at a later date. With that, the development representative is here.
Evening. Trustee Papantos, you had some questions?
Thank you. Go ahead, Brad, say it. But I can tell you what he's thinking, of course she does.
Will the food look like it does on the menus?
And this may be for CMX, more for you. My question was whether or not they would be able to convert back to a theater if they find out that there's more than enough dining experiences within the town center area.
My guess is that they would have to make an adjustment to either the kitchen area or the restaurant lounge area to add a theater, which would obviously be on the smaller size. I can tell you this, that the exterior core and shell of the building is not being modified at all. So if they did have to make any interior renovations, I do believe that would be possible.
Great. And do you know how they plan to change their advertisement so that people know that they can go in and eat dinner there without buying a movie ticket? I mean, I don't know how this works.
I do know that they have these different branding concepts, and as they are entering the U.S. market, they're trying to get comfortable with what component works well in different locations. And so they go with like a scene bistro or a VIP package, and I think they are making adjustments to their marketing and their branding. So we have the retail pylon, which is up, and they are going to make a change to the way that they advertise and their slogan, so to speak. Beyond that, I can't address anything, sorry.
Do you know if this concept is available at any of the theaters that they own in this area?
Yes, it is at the Old Orchard location.
So somebody could just come in and eat at Old Orchard but not choose to buy a movie ticket?
So the question was asked to Tom Stevenson from CMX if they could get some analytical data on the number of patrons that visit the restaurant only and not go to the movie theater. And unfortunately, they don't have the ability to do that yet. So he was unable to provide any clear answer. It would all be speculation on the percentage of people that go to the restaurant and don't actually attend the movie theater.
And you know this is one of my questions. What's this going to do to the timeline of opening?
It is going to push it back. They've been on hold with their interior build-out because they were waiting for approval. So the theater is going to be pushed back from a summer opening to a fall opening.
So 3 months roughly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Lang?
Thank you.
Hello.
Does this restaurant have a separate entrance? I can't really tell from the plans. Is there...
No, it's one entrance for the main theater. It's if you take a look at it closely, you'll understand that when when you walk into a typical theater, there's a vestibule area where you purchase tickets before you get into the concession area, and it's actually not like that here. So currently, there is not a separate entrance. It's one main entrance.
And so would there be windows in the restaurant area as well, or?
Yeah, so if you're looking at this, if you look to the bottom right corner, that's where the restaurant area is. That's right at the main entrance of the plaza, and that's all storefront glass windows.
Okay, great. And what type of food and do you have any idea?
It's American food with a twist. They do have their menu up online if you wanted to view it. I've sampled, the food, and then my partner has sampled the food out in New York as well. It's good food. They are no longer partnering with Let Us Entertain You, but it's a nice dining experience.
And the reason I ask that is I've been asked by a few residents, like, what's a typical night for a couple to go out, have dinner and a movie and do it?
I think their average price point for a ticket is $13, and I think they charge a premium if there's a blockbuster movie that is just opening up on a Saturday night. And with regards to, the food, I think it's going to range anywhere from like $12 to $16 for a meal.
Okay. And of course, a full bar in there as well.
Yes, a full bar as well. I didn't include any prices for drinks, so. I'm sorry that we don't have a representative from CMX here tonight, but Tom Stevenson did come in for the Plan Commission hearing, and he did provide us with some good insight as to why they were making the change.
Well, I think it's a great change. I think it'll do well, and you guys originally planned on doing that, and then it kind of backed off, and now it's here again, so.
It's definitely gone through some roller coaster rides, and ultimately, they know what they're doing, and they're looking at their data and their analytics, and they're deciding what's right for the market. So I have no objection to it.
Sounds like an excellent product. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Vito.
Great. Can you just give us a quick timeline on everything else that's going on, Starbucks, or when you think anything else?
Well, Starbucks is opening up this week.
Outstanding.
We just found out today that they passed their fire, life safety inspections. Their health inspections were passed. The business license is ready to be issued. We're just working through some construction access modifications to make sure that there's separation from the construction personnel and the public that wants to visit Starbucks. So we've been working with Andrew and his guys. So that's exciting. The residential building, similar. We've been working with Andrew and the fire department to get a temporary occupancy permit, which would allow our operations team to guide some of the interested tenants through the building. So we're really excited for that. We've got a long list of reservations, but we haven't really been able to give anybody a tour of the building. So there's a lot of people that are anxious to walk through and see the space. So we're very excited for that. After that, most of the retail tenants are going to open up starting in July. CityWorks is going to open up for the July 4th weekend. Mia's Cantina will open up in July. I expect Experience, Meat and Potatoes, 312 Nail Salon, Inland Bank, AT&T, all of those tenants to open up in the summertime as well.
Awesome, thanks.
Did you say AT&T?
Did I say AT&T? I think I did. Yes, they are one of our tenants.
Thank you.
They're on the outlet next to Inland Bank.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'd be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Vogel, second Trustee Papentos. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. There you go.
Thanks, guys.
We're at G.
13G. Resolution approving a publicly bid contract with Trine Construction Corporation for the 2019 water main replacement and roadway improvement program in the amount of $1,905,515.
Mr. Janik, what is this?
Thank you. Public Works is recommending approval of this contract with Trine Construction Company. Trine Construction did the last water main project in the village, which was in 2017. This project is very similar to that project. The installation of approximately 4,700 linear feet of water main is being proposed on Foster Avenue. At the same time, resurfacing of Foster Avenue would be done as well, including the intersection at Foster and Willow Road. Oftentimes with the construction like this, with the water main work in particular, the roadways get so beat up from the heavy equipment that we need to resurface. So this project would include both resurfacing and installation of water main.
So there's a significant negative effect on the existing pavement areas.
That's correct.
Or
there will be.
Kind of a long way to say the road gets beat up. Any comments or questions from the board? If there are no other remarks, I would be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel.
Second.
Trustee Lang. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
H. Ready?
Yes.
13H, resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute third extension agreements with Waste Management Northwest, providing for 5-year extensions to the residential and commercial waste hauling contracts in the village of Wheeling.
Mr. Svondillis, tell us about the garbage.
Happy to do so. Thank you. There are 3 aspects to this item that I'd like to present separately. The first is the extension, which is the language before you. The second is an opportunity for the board, should they choose to participate in an at-your-door service. And the third, I just like to take the opportunity of being on camera to advertise something that already exists with Waste Management, and that is the backdoor service. I don't think enough people are aware of it, so we wanted to take this opportunity to advertise it.
What is
it? That's part 3.
Sounded like you were
I'll keep you in suspense.
Fine.
I will explain all of it. Happy to answer questions. Attorney Ferrolo can do the same, and Mike Brink is here from Waste Management who can answer any details. So the reason that this item is on the agenda is an extension to our existing franchise agreement. Since 2004, the Village of Wheeling has had an exclusive franchise agreement with Waste Management for residential and commercial waste hauling. Since that time, we have had a very solid working relationship. Waste Management has, for the most part, held their prices. The last time we renewed, there was a significant reduction, which we are still taking advantage of because those reductions are still reflected in every year's increase, if there was one. And ultimately, after months of negotiating this extension, or the opportunity of this extension, it really comes down to what is the increase per month for residents and businesses. And the answer to that question is that this is a 5-year extension. Year 1 is a 1% increase. Years 2 through 5 has a floor of 1.75 and a cap of 3% based on CPI. We believe that this is an exceptional deal for our residents and our business community. Even in year 1 through year 5, looking at what other communities have done, we believe we are at least 5% below our neighbors. So we think that this is an exceptional deal. All of the other aspects, including the 25% senior reduction, can continue to be a part of the agreement, as well as the host fee, the recycling payment, and the franchise fee. Part of this negotiation was the village retaining an exclusive right to renew at the end of this extension. Waste Management did agree to that, which effectively means that the Village of Wheeling will be able to control prices for waste collection for the next 10 years should the board decide in 5 years to extend one more time. I think that is incredibly valuable for our residents and businesses. Again, that's an opportunity. It's not a requirement. The deal before you is a 5-year extension with the opportunity to renew at our exclusive right in 5 years. Those are the deal points of the extension. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them before moving on to part 2 of this agenda.
Trustee Papantos, then Trustee Lang.
Okay, I'm not sure if mine are just on the, mine's on the whole thing, so why don't we wait till the end?
Oh, okay. Well, just to be clear, the extension is what we're asking you for as a yes or a no. Assuming you say yes to that, the next part of this is an opportunity, which is a program that Waste Management has called At Your Door. It is a household hazardous and electronics recycling collection opportunity for residents at their curbside. So the way the program works is if the board chooses to implement this program, which costs $1.40 per month, and the question before the board will be, if you choose to implement it, it is for all residential, single-family, and townhome residents. So this is a yes or no that affects the whole village, single-family, and townhome residents. The way the program works is a resident would initiate a collection. They call a number, they send an email, they go to the website, a collection is scheduled, a kit is sent to the house, and then essentially it is collected by Waste Management. What we're talking about is actually quite an extensive list of what is included in the pickups: garden chemicals, swimming pool chemicals, automotive materials, flammable and combustible materials, household cleaners, paint products, and electronics with circuit boards. There's a significant amount of detail that goes into what really falls under each of those categories. But for the most part, household chemicals would be collected, included as part of this $1.40 per month fee at your curbside. All you have to do is call in advance and appropriately package it for collection. This is not only convenient for residents, I think the positive environmental impact that it has for residents to conveniently participate is exponential. People throw all kinds of things away that they shouldn't simply because they don't want to be bothered with doing the household hazardous collections are a challenge to get to. If you have paint, you can do the kitty litter trick. Not exactly the best option, but people are throwing away things they shouldn't. This provides them the opportunity to appropriately package, and Waste Management will appropriately dispose of those things, including electronics. Yes, we have electronic recycling events. Those happen only a couple times a year. They happen as part of our participation in Swank. Those will still happen, but this is far easier for residents to simply make one phone call and bring it to the curb, and it gets handled. Again, should the board agree to this, there is a lot of literature that will go out, a lot of advertising that will go out, and it has all the details for exactly what is a garden chemical and is accepted, what is an automotive material and is accepted. But those are the general categories of what this program is. Did I explain it? Well, all right. And that is a yes or no question before the board. $1.40 per resident, single family home and townhome only, all in for the community. The third thing, Mike, it probably is better if you explain this. It is the backdoor service, which is $7 per resident for garbage, $7 per resident for recycling, purely up to the resident. This is advertising. This is not a decision for the board. This is just an opportunity to talk about it, where Waste Management will bring your toters from the garage, dispose of the material, bring your toters back to the garage. That way you don't have to deal with heavy toters, weather issues, whatever. Purely voluntary for the charge, voluntary to sign up. This is, again, just an opportunity for people to register for that service should they choose.
Yeah, but you explained that program perfectly too. All they have to do is call our customer service department and they'll sign them up for the program. And, you know, it's great for people with disabilities or people that just don't want to take it out to the curb. So if we pull up, it's called back door, but it's really at the top of the drive. The driver has to be able to see it. He knows it's there. He'll bring it down, empty it, and bring the cart back up. So it's a nice service.
On the back door, can that be started and stopped, let's say, for winter months versus?
It can be, yeah.
Because it's a monthly fee for the.
Yeah.
And it would be $14 a month.
We bill quarterly, so some people will get it on the trash, but maybe not the recycling because the trash is a little heavier. So, you know, it's purely the resident's option of which one they want to do or both.
Great.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Lang, you had a question?
Yes, I have a couple, actually. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I'm fine with the extension. I think Waste Management is a tremendous company and do a great job for this village. The drivers are very courteous. One of the things, though, we and I had mentioned this to Mr. Spondoulis earlier, mattresses and sofas and such. It seems that we have, like some of the drivers have a discretionary view of what they should take and what they shouldn't take. And how can we make that a little easier to where it gets picked up all the time, or, you know, if they're not following the rules, are they notified that they're not following they put out too much, a whole sofa, a three-piece sectional, and that's too much to take?
Yeah, if they put out too much to take, the driver's supposed to leave a sorry tag and with a little explanation of what's going wrong.
And not take anything?
No, they should take something. I mean, there's weight restrictions on items because, you know, one driver has to be able to handle it safely. But, you know, without knowing the specifics, it's hard to say. But, you know, I'll certainly have a talk with the district manager and voice your concerns to him.
If just some consistency with it, because it seems like that it is pretty discretionary, and I had talked to one of the drivers one time when I noticed that he didn't pick something up, and he said, yeah, it was, you know, it was too heavy, and it was the least heavy of the items my neighbor was throwing out. He was throwing out a three-piece sectional, and it was the least heavy of the items, the smallest piece, and I was sort of surprised. So it seemed there was a lot of discretion used for that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a little discretion there. I mean, unfortunately, there's not a scale where you can put it on and weigh it. So, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a judgment call, and, you know, based on past experience of how much things weigh. I mean, you know, it's really all aimed at the driver's safety, you know, trying to prevent them from getting injured.
Sure. The at your door service, is that a separate container that comes?
No, it's a kit that comes into the mail, and it's an envelope, and in that envelope is a plastic bag with a bunch of labels in there. And what the resident does is, as John said, if they have pesticides to get rid of, they'll put the label on the pesticide and say that's the pesticide, or, you know, the old gas that needs to get rid of. And then they put the material into the plastic bag, and actually it goes outside their doors or at the top of the drive, and then our driver comes with the van, picks up all the material, and takes it in the truck and separates it. And then at the end of the month, we give the village a report of how many homes we collected from, what the weight of the material was, how much of it was recycled. I think probably about 95% of the material is recycled. And it's really nice that, you know, a lot of the attraction of the program lately has been for electronics. But if you called up and just said, hey, I have this monitor I want to get rid of, the person on the other end of the phone will all say, oh, okay, you know, what else do you have to get rid of too? Because, you know, we just don't want to stop at your house and take one item. So, you know, we'll go through the list, and, you know, hopefully there's other things you need to get rid of. I mean, if any of you are like me, when you moved into your house, the last person gifted you about 15 gallons of paint. So it's hard to get rid of that stuff.
Would you take the big TVs, the big boat anchor TVs?
Yeah, we take them.
There's not as many of those around.
Fortunately, they're becoming fewer between, but yeah, we do take them.
I still have one.
Yeah.
And then my last question, thank you very much. And last question is for John. It sort of seems in the winter we have kind of an exemption for containers going back on the side of the house or garage or into the garage. It seems there's a lot more out visible. Can we get a reminder out that those should be, you know, as weather gets better and
From
so
a code
on?
enforcement standpoint?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because, you know, there's, I see a lot of them out and just in front of folks' houses, but I can understand if they can't get it in their garage, it's too much snow to put it on the side of the house and so on, so
Yes.
a reminder would help. Thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Vito, please.
So that pickup, the curbside service, whatever you're talking,
At your door.
it's $7 per recycling bin, $7 per trash bin per month. And is toters, what Mr. Spondell is saying, is that the industry term for what I would call a garbage can and a
Actually, toters is a name brand, kind of like Kleenex would be, so
I see.
cart
All right.
Cart is the general term.
I didn't know I was breaking the rules.
Right.
And it always spells checks to totem, so it's good.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
And so with the $1.40 a month plan to pick up the hazardous materials and stuff like that, how, are you doing it in any other neighboring community close to here?
Yeah, actually, Buffalo Grove just approved it, but the Village of Wakanda does it, Ella Township does it, Warren Township does it, Lake Villa Township does it. We have a bunch of other communities, like Plainfield's one of our big users of the program. So we have about 20, 24 communities in the area.
And how often does it get used? Because my only concern is, you know, even me sitting here reading this and having it in my hand, if I have a, you know, electronic 6 months from now, am I going to remember to call Waste Management, get the bag sent to me, tag the thing, call you guys up to them, pick it up, or am I just going to say, screw it, I can fit it in this thing and put a garbage bag on top of it and no one will know?
Hopefully you're going to do it the right way. And
well, right, but I mean, what are you seeing out there? I mean, how many people are calling in on these?
You know, the participation's been pretty good. I will tell you, the participation, there's a direct correlation between how often it's in the residents' face and presented to them and how much use the program is getting. So if it's constantly mentioned in the village newsletter or brochures and that sort of thing, participation will be good. I think we put an initial 3-year trial on the program. So, you know, if you get the results back and at the end of 3 years you don't like it, you could say, okay, you know, we're going to discontinue that program. We also send out little postcards to the residents asking them how they like the program. And those postcards go right back to the village. So you'll be able to see from the residents that are using the program, you know, what they feel, how they feel about it, at least the ones that filled out the postcard and sent it in.
And unrelated question, is there a way to get an extension on yard waste pickup? Because every year it seems like that ends before the leaves are off. I have a X can on the side of my house that's full because it was done. And I was raking in whenever in December. I mean, I know that's not why you're here tonight, but I'm just wondering if there's a way to do it because it seems like it's a yearly issue.
That is something we can talk about. You know, we have to do some things on our end because we hire a lot of temp labor for yard waste season. And if you keep the temp labor, you know, a certain amount of time out, then they become full-time labor and there's union issues with that.
Okay. And my final comment would be, if we do approve this, I would ask that the village staff kind of put something in the circular every month saying, hey, don't throw your paint away, call Waste Management, whatever. So it's just constant because people won't remember.
Absolutely. As Mr. Brink said, the more we advertise it, the more successful the program will be, and we want it to be successful. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Trustee Papantos?
First of all, managers, Foundalis, and staff, thank you for this contract. This is a big deal. That takes months to get to, and I know that. It's probably one of the biggest contracts that we have to negotiate throughout. And I did read in the paper just last week, I believe, that what Buffalo Grove rates went up to. So great job as far as that goes. what part of our packet included a list of recyclable materials or things to be recyclable on a regular basis, which always confuses me.
Okay.
But can we make sure we put that, once again, either in our circular or on our website so people can look and say, this is something I can throw away, this is something I can't? Things like milk cartons that have the wax coating on it, is that recyclable or not?
It is.
Okay, good, because I have been. And things like that, just to make it easier. On the at your door service, right now we do the annual event where you have to haul the old TV or whatever down the stairs and try to get in the back of your car and get it. Will we still be doing the annual event for electronics or just for shredding?
You do that.
We do that through Swank, so yes.
Okay, great. And are things like propane tanks for barbecue grills, is that part of the at your door or no?
I would have to check on that one.
I'm still trying to figure out where to get rid of the thing. It's been back there for,
I think it is included, but I'll have to double check on that
Take
one.
it back.
it's like really old. He's going to have me bury it in the trash. Other than that.
It's a flammable material.
Pardon me?
It's a flammable material, and they collect those, so I would think it would be.
I would hope so. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, we need a motion. Right. Stop
If
here.
I may.
Go ahead.
So should we, it sounds like,
Oh, they
maybe
have
we'll
to be
work backwards.
separately, yeah.
Well, it sounds like the board is in favor of at your door service? Is that,
Consensus from nod heads. Everybody nodding?
so then should we make a motion?
Motion to
Everybody nodded.
implement the at-your-door service into the residential contract. I'd ask for that motion first, and then we'll do the motion to approve the resolution.
That's clear. We need somebody to make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee Papano, that's pretty simple. Second?
It was Papavantos and Vogel.
Thank you.
Can't
Okay.
hear me over Mary Pap, I'm sorry.
Trustee Vogel,
Yes.
trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Harper?
Yes, and what was the other part, Mr. Spondelis?
Now the
Now it's the resolution.
Now it's the resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Sorry,
Second.
motion trustee Krueger, second trustee
Vito.
Vito.
Sleeping.
Okay, trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Harper?
Yes.
Okay.
If I may, before moving on, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of Assistant Director Bajer and Public Works Director Janik in working through this. This is not a one-man show, and they did the bulk of the heavy lifting as far as the research goes. So I'd just like to acknowledge their role in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
13I, discussion regarding concept review of Prairie Park West Townhome Development, 5 Meadow Lane.
Mr. Spondelis.
Thank you. This is a formal process, so if we would, Mr. Shapiro, where he's here somewhere, if you could come up, or at least just move to the front. Thank you. This is a formal process. I will read some standard language, followed by Community Development Director Jennings providing a project overview and introduction of the petitioner. The petitioner will then present their information. We will go back to Community Development Director Jennings for zoning, special use, and site plan concerns, and we will end, before moving on to questions and concerns, of course, of the board, we will hear from Economic Development Director Malanaphy to talk about general financing, job creation, where necessary, and revenue generation. A concept review. The current request is for a non-binding approval of the proposed concept. The feedback by the board will be used by the development team as a guide in the preparation of the formal development plan. The outcome of this evening shall not constitute a formal approval or denial of the application. The decision by the board tonight is non-binding and shall not prevent the applicant from moving forward with a formal application. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. The developer, who's the applicant for this concept review, is D.R. Horton Midwest. They are the developer of the Wolf Crossing
townhome development on the east side of Wolf Road, south of its intersection with Milwaukee Avenue. The development team, who will present in a moment here, is proposing a townhome development on a 7.3 acre parcel that is just west of the Prairie Park condominium development. The ultimate outcome from tonight will be that the development team will take the feedback from the board and work on the formal zoning petition that would facilitate the development. At this time, just one procedural note. Many of the concept reviews that come in front of the board are the required first step of a plan unit development. In this case, the plan unit development process is not required. This is a property that is already zoned R4. The development team is contemplating a development that is consistent with the R4 zoning, save for a few zoning variations. They are able to submit for a standard review and not a plan unit development. So just one procedural note before they take the floor here.
And then, Mr.
Good evening. My name is Derek Hoffman. I'm with D.R. Horton. I think before I begin tonight, I just want to make mention of Trustee Brady's passing. Had the pleasure of presenting a few times in front of Trustee Brady. Always thought his comments were insightful and pragmatic, and I thought it was pretty touching tonight to hear you each speak about your long history with him. And so, on behalf of myself and the rest of our team, our condolences to all of you for the loss of one of your fellow board members. So tonight, as Mr. Jennings pointed out, we're here for a concept review for a potential new development in the village of Wheeling. The project is adjacent to Prairie Park condominiums, as was alluded to. Just briefly, our project team, I'm joined here tonight by Bruce Mellon, who's our Director of Land Development. I think most of you know Dan Shapiro, who's working as our zoning counsel on this matter. We tried to utilize some of the same, try to put the band back together a little bit on some of the people who worked on Wolf Crossing, so hopefully this time around we're a little bit wiser and more efficient maybe than we were on Wolf Crossing to make the process a little bit easier. Quickly on D.R. Horton, just to refresh your memory. So we're the largest home builder by volume in the United States and have been for about the last 17 years. We currently have operations in 84 different markets and 29 different states. And at the calendar year that ended 2018, we closed a little over 52,000 homes across the country. We've been actively building in the Chicagoland market for over 50 years, and currently we have 42 active selling locations throughout the Chicagoland area. And perhaps it's only interesting to me, but when I first appeared in front of all of you back in February of 2017, we had 24 active selling communities around the Chicagoland market, so we've been busy over the last 2 years. So just to give you some perspective of the property that we're looking at, this is kind of a global aerial view. The property in question tonight is highlighted in red. So it's, if you were to drive to the back of Prairie Park West, back by where the clubhouse, I'm sorry, if you were to drive to the back of Prairie Park condominiums where the clubhouse is, and you kind of look up a hill, there's kind of a dome right now of compacted material behind the site. So that's the property that we're here to discuss tonight. Just to kind of zoom in on it and give you a little bit more perspective. So these are some approximate boundary locations. So the property that we're talking about tonight is in orange. All the blue property is property that's either owned by the Park District or by the village. The light blue line is the detention or the diversion channel, which I think we've all talked about extensively, or I know I've heard you guys have conversations about that extensively. The green line is existing walking trails throughout the parkland the Park District property. The gray area to the north and the two gray areas off to the left of this slide are privately owned properties. And the two yellow stars indicate where there are private residences. So one of the things I'd like you to take away from this slide is Meadow Lane, which runs, and if I can use my cursor without messing this up, runs along the south edge of the property here. So the road sort of dead ends at the diversion channel right now. Its primary service, or primary function, is the service of two single-family homes that are at the end of Meadow Lane right now. So we're going to be talking more about Meadow Lane as we kind of go through this presentation, but this kind of gives a good global overview of where that's located. So our ultimate goal, I think Andrew said the property is zoned R4 right now, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the property is zoned R1 right now, and we're looking to rezone it to R4. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but at least that's our understanding of the current situation of the property. So we're here to take a first step tonight, which is to review a concept plan with you and find out if we're on the right track or not. We received a bunch of comments from staff right now, which I believe is a good thing. I think it at least shows to me that they're really studying our development plan and getting prepared to get this into a position where we're ready to begin development. So I think most of the comments that staff has raised thus far can really be addressed as we get into preliminary approvals. Studying those things come with a cost, obviously. Putting together snow storage plans, illumination studies, engineering studies, studying turning radii. So for us, before we start to put out that money and start to study all those issues, it would be a really good thing to hear from you all that know that we have a thumbs up and we're kind of headed in the right direction. We're also probably going to be asking for some variances to the zoning code. So I want to talk about those a little bit too, just so we're all up front and we're kind of looking at this from the same perspective. So here's the current site plan for the property. As Andrew said, the site is 7.3 acres. And we're currently showing the development of 71 townhome units surrounded by open space and landscaping with access to the Park District property and walking trails. So there's going to be a mixture of two different townhome product types in this plan. Along the westerly edge of the property, and if you can see my cursor along this side, and this came from a recommendation from staff, by the way, we would be building front-loaded townhome units similar to what we have at Wolf Crossing. And the thought is, one, easier access, and two, it gives all of those units a backyard which overlooks the existing open space in the Park District area. The rest of the units will be rear-loaded townhomes, similar to what you may recall at Millbrook Point in the interior of that development, where people drive into the garages in the rear, their front doors on the front of their units. Primary access for this development would be through Prairie Park, through the condominiums, subject to execution of definitive agreements with the condo association and a cost-sharing plan. But we're looking at that as our primary access point. We're looking at Meadow Lane, the access off of Meadow Lane, to be used for emergency access into the site. Talking about the homes specifically, and I won't read all this verbiage and take up our time, but I think the important takeaway from this is that we'll be in compliance with the village standards in terms of design, making sure that we have the appropriate materials on the exteriors of the units, the appropriate brick percentages. I know we talked about that on Wolf Crossing when I was here last time, so we'll make sure that we tackle that issue correctly out of the gate this time around. So these would be the front-loaded townhomes, and this is kind of similar to what you see at Wolf Crossing right now. So these units range anywhere between 2,200 square feet approximately up to 2,500 square feet. They're all 3-bedroom units, 2.5 baths. So these would be the units on the west side of the property. And this would be the rear-loaded townhome. So, and I'm going to try to go back here to the site plan so we can put this into some perspective. So on a rear-loaded townhome, say in this middle configuration, these people would have their front door facing common walkways and green space in the front of their units. So they would access these units from behind their unit, and that's where their parking would be. All of the units on this plan, we're contemplating the village's mandated guest parking requirement. So two interior garage spaces, 2 driveway parking spaces. So let's talk about some of the things that are going to be up for discussion over the next few months as we go through this process. So the streets that we're proposing as part of this development would be private. So D.R. Horton would be paying to install them. The HOA would be paying to maintain them going forward. One of the things that we're asking for that is a departure from village code is on-street parking. Once again, I would remind you to take into context that this would be a private development with private streets. What we're proposing is one-way traffic around that loop road in the middle. That way, with the current cross-section of the streets, even with parking, you would have 20 feet of clear pavement for vehicles to be able to transverse the site. Another thing in our plan that's a departure from current code is we're proposing to put 1 6-foot walk on one side of the street versus a 5-foot walk on both sides of the street. In terms of building separation, we're proposing building separations that are very similar to Wolf Crossing. So if you've driven through Wolf Crossing, it will give you a great idea of the feel and separation between the buildings. One of the things that has been kind of discussed between us and staff, once again, I'm going to scroll back here to the site plan, is sort of the separation in these courts here. So it's a bit deceiving. I don't know how clear your copy is, but it's labeled as 51 feet between those buildings. So those buildings, these rear-loaded townhomes, have about a 5-foot overhang on the rear elevation. So the garages would be 61 feet apart from each other. So when you take 61 feet, you back out 2 20-foot driveways, it leaves you with a 21-foot circular access in between the driveways to navigate the site. Another variation that we'll be discussing is in terms of garage size. So village code requires a 528 square foot garage. The current garages on these units that we build are 348 feet. So that's something else that we'll have to discuss in our meetings and get your input on that. And then the last issue, which I think is going to be paramount to this project as we move forward, is how we treat and how we handle Meadow Lane and what we do with that portion of the site development plan. So I'm not sure how many of you have been out there anytime soon, but I thought I would take a shot in the snow to give you some idea of what the current condition is on Meadow Lane. So if you look off to the right here, this would be the development site. You can see right now there's quite a bit of grade change between existing Meadow Lane and then, believe it or not, this is a piece of machinery sitting on top of the hill. So part of what we're going to have to do here is level the site, and we're going to have to cut the grade down, the current elevation of the site down to make it more flat. And we're going to have to use some retaining walls in order to accomplish that. But right now, the site is kind of like a dome. So it's really hard to build homes on a dome. So we have to kind of flatten the site to be able to make it more usable from a construction standpoint. At the end of this street, at the end of Meadow Lane, you know, the neighbors that live down there very clearly do not want traffic down their street. In fact, I think they took it upon themselves. This picture on the lower left-hand corner, the no trespassing sign, that's a sign that the residents down there put up. So one of the things we need to figure out is, as we talk about improving Meadow Lane, how much of it is to better the current situation on Meadow Lane, how much of it is going to be promoting traffic into an area where people clearly don't want additional traffic to travel. I think one of the things that is an absolute must is we need to make sure that if we are going to use that southern access point as an emergency access, that Meadow Lane is improved at least up to that point to make sure that we've got a stable condition to be able to get emergency vehicle access. Now, as part of our proposal, we had suggested using collapsible bollards, which you see on the photograph in the bottom middle. In one of our communications with the chief made a very good point that those may be problematic come a snow event or ice buildup. What happens if they're responding to an emergency and there's a pile of snow in front of those, would you be able to get access through? I think those are all very, very valid questions. So we're going to have to, if we determine, all of us collectively working through this process, that the southern access point should be an emergency access, I think we're going to have to work with the fire department to find out what's going to give them the greatest amount of comfort in terms of emergency access system. Whether it's blocking curbs there, whether it's chain, whether it's some sort of other gating system. The thought behind making this an emergency access, I mean, I think any person looking at this would say, well, why don't you just let the street just run through? Why close it off? Why make an emergency access? And it really goes back to the point on the private streets. So the HOA and the people that live in this community are going to be bearing the burden of repairing these streets as they become after normal wear and tear. So what can we do to try to limit as much cut-through traffic as possible coming through the development that we're proposing, coming down onto Mayerson and into the residential neighborhood? Certainly our intention is not to drive any more traffic through that neighborhood than absolutely possible. So our solution is to make that an emergency access. It would cut down on the traffic coming through our subdivision. It would also cut down any traffic coming down into the Bacardi subdivision to the south. So with that said, that kind of concludes what I had to say. As I said earlier, tonight we're really here to hear from you about whether or not we're heading in the right direction, thoughts, ideas that you may have, questions that you may have regarding our development, and then see if this is worth taking to the next step. So thank you.
Trustee Papantos first, then Trustee Lang.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And it appears that Wolf Crossing is moving along, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming back to us and considering Wheeling as a viable market. Speaking of marketing, who are you going to market these to?
So it'll be a continuation of the people that we're marketing at Wolf Crossing. I think the demographic that we're finding coming through buying units there is surprisingly a little bit of a mixture. So when I originally underwrote that deal, I assumed that we were going to see our buyer profile primarily be young professionals who were either buying their first place or were looking to move into the area. I don't know how many of you ever go to the Deerfield train station in the morning, but there's a plethora of people that take the train out of the city every day that get off at Deerfield to head to Walgreens or various other places. A lot of people are tired of that commute out of the city, and that certainly has been a portion of our buyer. Interestingly enough, I would say it's about 50-50. The other 50% has been empty nesters. People who are looking to get out of the house that they raise their family in, want something low maintenance, want something that they can lock up and kind of go away from and not have to worry about someone picking up the mail. They can have a property manager look after the place. They've got neighbors. And frankly, it's low maintenance. They don't have to worry about cutting the lawn anymore. They don't have to worry about painting the exterior or the roof. It's all taken care of by the HOA. So it's been a balance of the two. And I would imagine that trend would continue here.
And that's interesting just because of the amount of stairs that you pull in the garage and you've got to hit those stairs right away.
That's what I thought too, right? But interestingly enough, I mean, that seems to be definitely part of our buyer demographic.
Because these are very good sized homes. I think it was 2,300 square feet.
2,200 on the rear loaded. The smaller units, the rear loaded units are about 1,750, which seems to be a little bit more manageable too. But when you start talking about 2,200 square feet, that's really a single family alternative living. I mean, that's
even 17 is.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So traditionally, we've built a lot of the rear loaded townhomes around the Chicagoland area, and we do get quite a few people, even with the stairs, that are empty nesters that like it because of the low maintenance and the fact that they can kind of lock it up and go away and not have to worry about, the condition of the unit after they leave.
Have you heard anything from the neighboring homeowners, the condos? Great, we want to see you there. No, don't you dare build here.
Sure.
Something?
Well, we've had some preliminary conversations with, see, this is always the interesting part of any transaction, right? So we've had some preliminary conversations with the HOA, and I think there is a mutual interest to talk about a cost-sharing agreement, common HOA management, perhaps use of, for the townhomes to use the fitness and facility and the amenity on the site. But the question is, how far do you take that conversation, right? Until we really get some feedback from all of you. I mean, it'd be great to have that all inked and done, but are we really wasting everyone's time until we kind of flush this out with all of you and get some feedback on whether or not this is heading in the right direction?
What about the single-family homes around there?
Haven't had any contact with any of the single-family home people as well. I think as we dig into this Meadow Lane issue and we start talking about what the proposal is down there, we need to start having those conversations. Once again, you know, I try not to be too much of an alarmist. If this project is not going to move forward, there's no sense in kind of raising it. Like I said, it's kind of one of those limbo spots in every transaction where you're, you know, once I think we get some direction from you, it'll be the appropriate time to start having those conversations.
Is the detention you showed on this slide, yeah, still up there, is that currently on site?
Yeah, it is. It's currently there, and let me see. So there are 2 ponds that are currently there as well right now.
Okay, that's what I meant. Hard to tell.
Yeah.
The blue I could tell.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And, yeah, I really think this is a worthwhile project. I will tell you right now, your garage sizes just sound, and I brought this up with your last project too. That's a little tight, but certainly something we can look forward to.
Okay.
Thank you.
I went out of order. I have to apologize. Mr. Jennings, you still have to address community development's concerns and economic development. After that, Trustee Lang, you'll be speaking, Trustee Vogel. But Mr. Jennings, please.
Thanks for coming back to me. Just a couple of notes as the trustees make their comments on the proposed development. As Mr. Hoffman said, this is a collaborative process. We have worked with the development team in the past. They are not quite at the point where we would be able to go through everything with them. So with the understanding that the concept review is just in fact a concept review, the development team has not yet worked out some of the details. They're aware of the comments that we have. I'll read them for you, go through them. They're aware of them. We haven't yet fully worked through all these issues with them. And part of the purpose of the concept review is to put on the table what we see as the issues ahead, advise the board of them, advise the development team of them, and then if there are any questions that we are asking for feedback on, I want to try to make sure that we're clear as to what those questions are. The private road design standards are one of the issues that all of the village departments had an issue with. We do have minimum standards for the private road in terms of width for a variety of reasons, emergency access being one of them, snow removal being another. So we would need to work with the developer should this move forward on working our minimum design standards into the development. That has an impact on how they would arrange for their guest parking, potentially has an impact on the total number of units. So we just want to be very upfront with everyone that should this move forward, those minimum design standards would have to be factored into the design of the development. The current topography of the site does cause the need for some creative engineering. The development team is anticipating use of retaining walls for much of the property. They have, to the extent that they've done engineering design thus far, they are anticipating the wall height will range, I think, from 2 to 7 feet, something in that ballpark, just to level the site in a way that they can construct the homes in the most practical fashion, provide the emergency access that would be required. So we just want to be clear that there would likely be some retaining walls around much of the property. It's been mentioned by both the developer and in the staff memo that there are potential improvements to Meadow Lane. Staff views the improvements to Meadow Lane as something that should be required in conjunction with the development. It is going to be a private road that should be improved to the same private road standards of the roads inside the development. We have discussed thus far a few different pedestrian improvements, the access to the pedestrian network that exists outside of the development, and then the pedestrian experience inside the development. Moving ahead, we would be working with the developer to enhance the pedestrian experience here. Then, as you see in the staff memo, there are two items. We had, prior to coming to this concept review, we had asked the developer to support the request to utilize Prairie Park, although there is an existing easement for Prairie Park Drive to provide access to this property. We had asked the developer to provide some support for that. So they have prepared a preliminary traffic study that addressed the staff concerns, and we don't view that there's any additional action on that at this time. And then the most important thing, I think, that would be a question for the board. One of the variations that wasn't listed on the slide that you saw was the variation related to access. Our interpretation of the zoning code is that public access to this site is required. It's a minimum standard of the zoning code. In order to develop this in the way that they're proposing without utilizing the public access to the south, we believe that a variation is required. That means that they will need to provide a response to the standards for a variation. Ultimately, they're not quite at that stage yet, but the staff review of this has been that that should be considered by the board. If you have any preliminary feedback for them, our opinion has been that the roadway through the single-family neighborhood was designed in anticipation of providing public access, the way it stubs out at the north end of Meyerson there. Our opinion is that that was done in anticipation of providing public access. They have met the building code and fire code requirement for providing emergency access, but the question remains, should that be upgraded to a more full public access? With that, I believe that covered all of the staff concerns. This location is not in a TIF district, so that portion of the concept review can be skipped. And yes, Mr. Hoffman is correct. It does need to be rezoned from R1 to R4 in conjunction with the formal application.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Mr. Malenefi, you have something to add?
Thank you, President Horker. I'd just like to say that D.R. Horton has successfully developed Wolf Crossings without any incentives whatsoever. This project, as Director Jennings mentioned, is not TIF eligible. It's not located in the TIF district, but it's a good quality project with good quality materials, what we've seen at Wolf Crossings. It will provide positive economic benefits with the temporary construction jobs. It will also generate new property taxes. This property's been undeveloped for many years. The residents in approximately 70 units would also positively impact retail sales productivity in the village's retail facilities. And based upon this concept review, economic development supports it, subject to working with staff on some of the details. But it looks like a nice project. When we first met with D.R. Horton regarding the Deerfield moving and storage site, they were very eager to work in Wheeling. They've done a really nice job with that project. We're looking forward to hopefully work with them again on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malenefi. Trustee Papantos, you already gave your comments. Trustee Lang and then Trustee Vogel.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman, for the record, Trustee Brady never referred to you and your company as a shady developer?
That's good to hear. Although I do remember him quizzing me once on plywood widths on roofs, and it was, I think, after a meeting he came in and he's like, "Do you use 5/8 or 1/2 inch?" I said, "I don't know." He's like, "You got a lot to learn, kid." You want to learn. So, yeah.
3/4 would be better.
Yeah, right. Understood.
So, a couple questions. You know, the comprehensive plan, you know, calls for something of this magnitude there. But you know, there's a little tightness of space. My question on the access off of Meyerson to Meadow, is that a village? Just for clarification, does the village not want that connected, or do you guys not want that connected?
Well, I think, you know, perhaps one of the best ways to deal with this is talk about Meadow Lane right now. And is my understanding that is a private road, is it not? Or who's maintaining the existing Meadow Lane? Right?
It is private. It's an existing private driveway.
Right. So this would be, the right-of-way that we're showing right now for Meadow Lane would be a private roadway. Who wants the connection there? My preference would be, since we're going to be paying to maintain the streets, is to try to limit as much cut-through traffic as possible, right? I would hate to see people coming out of Prairie Park, coming down, and then traveling through the McCarty subdivision, right? I think the people that, in a perfect world, the people that would use these roads are the people that live there that are paying for them and paying to maintain them. I think, so when you ask whose idea is it for the emergency access on Meadow Lane, it's ours. Our first site plan that we shared with staff showed no access on Meadow Lane. With the cajoling of staff, we included emergency access spot. I think the question really for all of you is, what do you guys want to see? You're really the decision makers at the end of the day. Is emergency access sufficient? Do you want to see full access there? Does that raise any other concerns in the surrounding area if we put full access in?
Well, I think I can't answer that now about full access, because there's a lot of neighbors that get impacted on both sides there. And so I think that's definitely something that we should study, to have full access there, or perhaps not. Sure. I mean, there could be a compelling reason not to do it as well. But I'd like to see it studied at the very least.
I'd just like to interject. Director Jennings, can you explain what the code requires, just so that you have an understanding of, we're working backwards from what the code requires?
Right. So when we're talking about the code in this case, there's more than one code at play. The emergency access is a code requirement of the building code and fire code. The position of the village is that is not something that can be, they can't ask for relief from that. So the emergency access, in our interpretation of the code, is clearly required in this case. The question then is of the zoning code, Title 19, and of the subdivision code, Title 17, both of which would require the development to have to be built with access to a public street. Now, the way that they're accomplishing that, in our view, is legal. They are able to provide access for this development through Prairie Park by way of that easement. However, it does require a variation. So it is going to, if they proceed with this request, to not have public access to the south and develop it in that fashion, they will need to demonstrate support in their petition for the standards for a variation. They will need to demonstrate that they meet those standards. The Plan Commission will have to make findings of fact and submit them to the board. So it's somewhat premature, because we haven't even seen what their support is for that petition yet, but it's still, I think, useful for some guidance to know whether or not there's generally support for it.
Just on the surface, I'd lean towards, me personally would lean towards access to that. It just seems like it would be easier for the residents back there to get in and out of. And I think they're the only ones that really are going to access that area. I can't imagine anyone from Prairie Park cutting through there. That doesn't seem like a very good cut through to me. Right. Anyway, so with that, I know you guys will work that out in the future. I like the fact that you want to tie in with the HOA at Prairie Park. That makes a lot of sense. I know that's preliminary as well, but that makes sense. And one other thing. I'm confident that everything else will be worked out with our community development. So I hope this project goes through.
Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Vogel, then Trustee Krueger.
Yes, thank you. I had questions also about Meadow Lane, but I think between Mr. Jennings and you answered those questions for the time being. The retaining walls, are they in the backside of the Canterbury homes? Am I looking at this right?
Yes. So they're actually kind of all around the site.
They're all
right.
Yeah.
So we're tackling two issues, and we can get into the weeds on this if we'd like, and Bruce Mellon, our head of land development, can come up and talk about it. We're wrestling with two issues here. One is that we have this dome we have this dome that we've got to flatten to be able to make enough buildable area to make this project make sense. But the second thing is, we have to keep it high enough because of the heights of those ponds. So we can't flatten it too far where those ponds would strain off onto the site.
Okay.
And so some part of the way that we can accomplish that is through retaining walls to expand the building area, but yet keep the pad up high enough to, and keep it out of the high water mark on those ponds.
Okay. No, I really like the project. I like the look of it, and I especially like the fact that you're planning on dealing with the other association and working with them. I think that'll be a win-win situation for both of you. I don't have a problem with the access off of Meyerson Way. You've got private roads in there. You're going to have to sell it. And if you can sell it that way, go for it.
Right.
The other thing is the garages. In your prior experience, they are small.
Yep.
Have you had any problems? Anybody
And so these
walk away
rear
because
loaded,
of the size?
yeah, these rear loaded townhomes, and I'm simply guessing here, but I would say over the past 15 years, we've probably built 2,500 of them around Chicagoland in various iterations. The garage has never been a complaint or a selling objection on the units. If they were, we would have changed them a long time ago. So they haven't been of concern.
And I would think they won't be at this type of a development because you're not going to see big families moving in here that need extra storage.
Right.
I mean, if the Smith family moved into one of these, they'd have to build an extra garage to collect all their sports equipment.
Yeah, right.
With all the kids all into sports. But I think, the concept behind what you're doing it's probably adequate. So.
These meetings, have consequences that carry forward. So all of us spent a lot of time talking about garage sizes, right? And not only with the village board, but also with the plan commission. So every time I see the people, our salespeople that are selling Wolf Crossing, I constantly ask them, anyone say anything about the garage size? Any objections related to the garage size? And they haven't told me that's been an issue thus
Good.
far.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vogel. Trustee Kruger?
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, Mr. Osmond.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming back and wanting
good
to
to see
do
you
another
again.
project. A lot of my questions were asked and answered, but speaking of traffic, where would construction traffic during construction of this project be coming?
Well, I would imagine that in terms of construction traffic, when it may come in both ways, depending on which portion of the site that we're working on. Like I said, there's a lot of haul off that's going to need to happen here
Right.
and material. So I would imagine and Bruce Mellon may be able to speak to this point more eloquently than I can, but I imagine that he's going to use both access points for construction traffic while we're building the site. But I think in terms of when we begin actual construction of the units, once the earthwork is completed, I would see most of the traffic coming through the primary entry point.
Right, it was, as I recall, when we did the Meadow Lane detention area, we certainly came in through Meyerson Way and to build that, and it was messy.
Yeah.
So I would hope, when we get to that stage.
Yeah. Well, I
careful of
think it's important to note, and before the meeting started, I was talking to the chief, and, I was asking him about access down Meadow Lane right now, and he said it's problematic with the current condition. I mean, I showed you the slide before. I can imagine with a heavy fire truck that getting down that current lane would be problematic. So I think at a minimum, the minimum improvements that we would do on Meadow Lane is making sure that from Meyerson Way to that emergency access point, that at least that portion is cleaned up to make sure that he can get access to.
Right.
The real question is, with Meadow Lane is, what happens with the stretch of it all the way down to the diversion channel? And that's a big question
Right. that
needs to be answered.
I encourage you to build your case for that variance, for that access, because I'm inclined personally to want to see the full access.
Okay.
But I also respect what you're saying about it's a private drive, it's a private community. Why compete with that? Estimated price point on these units, somewhere similar to Wolf Crossing?
Yeah, I think they will be very similar to Wolf Crossing. specifically on the front-loaded units on the back with the larger square footages. Hopefully, we can get price points down slightly on some of the smaller square footage units. You know, price points, I'm sure you guys have either looked online or stopped by Wolf Crossing. Price points at Wolf Crossing are high threes, low fours. So I think we're kind of, you know, testing that upper end of the market right now. And, but I think blended, it's going to be very similar between the two.
And I get what you're saying, and garages have been brought up a couple of times. Now, there was some mention in the packet about the private road being built with a wider width that may reduce the density in the area. Right now, we're looking at 71 units.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea what that would be reduced to in the event of change in the width?
It depends on how hard these guys squeeze me. I don't know at the end of the day. Well, listen, I mean, I think there are pragmatic issues that we need to talk about. And, you know, I mean, obviously making sure that the site can be serviced from a health safety standpoint and making sure that fire safety, ambulances, police, that everyone has appropriate access is important. So we need to study that and make sure that that's important. You know, some of the issues that have come up in terms of snow removal, we're going to have to make sure that we've got a good plan on that. Another issue that came up is on trash collection, which I think we heard a really interesting potential solution on that issue tonight as well. So how far does the density go down? I don't know. I'd like to say to 70. I don't know. Well, we'll see. We have some work ahead of us to
Absolutely, and I am glad you're prepared to embark on that, so, thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Krueger. Trustee Vito?
Yeah, in general, I like the project. It's nice that it's out of TIF. And, you know, I know there's been criticism of using TIF money for residential units, but the reality is if Prairie Park wasn't there with the TIF, then this non-TIF project wouldn't be there. I have some questions just in general about the concept of this emergency lane, and I mean, I may be really dumbing this down, but Chief, can you answer, if I'm in a blazing inferno in Prairie Park on that southwest building, why am I so much better off than I would be in a blazing inferno at the, you know, northwest corner of that, of the new development? Assuming there's no access roads whatsoever from Meyerson.
The bigger issue is once you start to put big vehicles on a substandard road, the road becomes blocked, and therefore you cannot maneuver past it. By having two access points on the property, which is in our subdivision code, it allows emergency vehicles to respond from different directions and therefore can overcome being the road basically roadblocked by the first piece of fire apparatus.
Wouldn't that be the case in Prairie Park now? I mean, wouldn't it be blocked in that?
Prairie Park has conforming streets, and it's a full ring that goes around it. The only dead end is at the very end by Wolf. But as far as servicing the buildings, we have bidirectional movement through the whole complex. With this, you're going to have a narrow street. You're taking a 31-foot street, you're adding a 10-foot wide on-street parking, you're bringing it down to approximately 20 to 21 feet in width. And the problem is now you start to snowplow, you end up with a situation very similar to what you see in the Chicago side streets in the winter, because now that gets either further reduced because the snow piles up along the curbs and it piles up along the vehicles, and you have to dig your vehicle out. And that does become a problem for us with a 20-foot wide street.
Yeah, and maybe I'm being callous, and I said this to John Svandelis, but 3 million people live in Chicago. I mean, it's not ideal, but I think it could work. I mean, you know, if you're going to put the money out for a private street and you want to maintain it, I think you should be able to do it. At a minimum, I don't think a collapsible ballard would be, you know, completely out of line in a case like this. And if there is snow, I mean, that there could be something covenanted, something contracted in or at least agreed to where, you know, snow removal will remove the snow from the ballard. So it could be open and free. So I like the project. I'd like to see it done. I don't want to, you know, scare you guys away with, you know, zoning and over caution, but I get the fire chief's point. I mean, that's his job. He's the fire chief. But, you know, at the same time, I'd like to see this project go and make it as viable as possible for you guys. So thanks for coming, thanks for your time, and hopefully we can get this one moving.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, just for point of reference, to make this a little simpler, are there streets the width they're describing already in existence in this town?
We have scenarios that are very similar to that in Cedar Run and a few other places, and I would just point out that we have a lot of issues in those, and that's why the code was amended well over 30 years ago to prevent those kind of scenarios. I would like to also add just a clarifying issue on the bollards. The way the bollards are situated here, they're shown at the very southern end of the private drive. You basically end up with about a 50-foot section of what is Meyerson that's on the other side of the bollards. And one of the issues that we've raised in early discussions is not only do you have to maintain the bollards that can be frozen in the middle of the winter and pose a problem with no way with landscaping and the detention basins to go around them, but also it has to be snow plowed and maintained on the opposite side, if you will, the Meyerson side of the bollards as well. And it gets in an issue as who's going to maintain that and how's that going to be maintained.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone else have any other questions? We're going to have to take a few polls of the board before we get to the... Actually, I'd like to do the concept first, just the idea of this multifamily residential development in this area, and then I would like to poll the board on their positions as far as the access, full access south and north, if they're willing to take a position at this point, and then poll the board on the street parking, which does become an issue relative to the emergency services and the width of the streets. Does that sound like a reasonable way of proceeding with this? Thank you. So just on the concept of multifamily residential on the lot, I mean, it's basically already there, but do we like the concept? I'm going to start to my left. Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yep.
I also like it. I think it's about the only sensible thing to do in this area. So it's a good idea. You're almost halfway there. Access all the way through, and by that I mean, do we want to require access through from Meadow Lane as well as Prairie Park? Pretty much just yes or no, or?
I think the question is emergency versus full. I mean,
Emergency
I think
versus
everyone
full.
agrees that, I mean, the code requires it as well, that there needs to be at least emergency access.
When I see a possibility of closed access on a thing like this, the thing I always think of is a sand pebble, and it's cumbersome. But, so then emergency or full, I guess.
Is that accurate, Mr. Jennings?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to pull it.
But, excuse me,
Trustee Lang.
emergency is mandatory, correct?
Right, so, but I think the
Only
question that's
emergency
going to be
versus-
asked is whether the board would provide relief from full access down to emergency
Gotcha.
only.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that's what I would think. Are we good? I'm going to start on my right this time. Trustee Kruger.
Full.
Trustee Lang.
Yeah, I'd like to see full explored.
Thank you. Trustee Vito.
Emergency.
Trustee Papantos.
Full.
Trustee Vogel.
Emergency.
I'm in favor of full. I didn't get the count. How's that work?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4 to 2 for full.
Okay.
Full wins.
But with a caveat for mine is that if it just doesn't work, I'm fine with emergency. So I'd like it to be explored that way.
Okay. Street parking, the width of the streets being impacted by street parking. This should be basically whether or not with streets this width, should we allow street parking? Is that how that's?
Well, the code prohibits on-street parking. Kind of end of story. Director Jennings, am I missing any aspect of this?
Excuse me, does that
Anywhere
include private streets?
Or private, right.
Yeah, the code does, so this would be, let's see, the vehicle code does have a restriction on overnight parking on a street. There are a couple of exceptions. Those exceptions are approved directly into the code. So if you look at the code, where in this section, it says, except for the following locations. So at this point, there is no distinction between the private or not private. It is generally a street in the village. On-street parking is restricted overnight. So I would say it's not necessarily overstating it, but yeah, it is restricted.
Clear enough for making a
It's
decision?
restricted as long as we want it to be restricted. I mean,
That's
it's
true.
restricted where it's not, unless it's not.
You'd have to create an exception, another exception.
Right.
Through the code.
Right.
It should also be pointed out, Director Jennings, the places that are currently exempted were existing and built decades ago.
Yes, they have limitations that led to the exception being granted.
So is Cedar Run one of those? Is that what I'm hearing, or what?
They're not answering.
I could find the section and before we finish.
Okay, well, he seems like he needs to say something.
Well, I guess I would just add that, as you drive through Prairie Park, there is on-street parking in Prairie Park. The question whether or not, I think, is whether or not Prairie Park allows that parking to be overnight or not, or whether that is temporary. But certainly in front of the buildings, there is, on-street parking in Prairie Park right now.
Right, we're talking about overnight.
Yeah, right.
Right, and they don't. Am I?
That's a private street. So there's parking in front of the buildings there, but that's a private street. That's not regulated by the city, by the village. On public streets in the village, there's no overnight parking. In front of Prairie Park, that circle is a private street.
As is this.
As is this, that's correct. Well, the point is that there are spots in front of the buildings of Prairie Park that have lines on them, and that means that they can park there. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what they require, but they're parking spaces that are actually located on the street.
Well, yeah, they're right here in the picture.
Well, we're talking about overnight.
I understand.
You don't have spaces marked on village streets for cars. People just park there temporarily, and then there aren't spaces that are marked off on the street. Does that make sense?
I'll refrain from comment.
Mr. Hoffman, you have something you can say?
I know in these types of settings, we don't like this to make an open Q&A, but so if I'm hearing Mr. Janik correctly, that this city is not regulating parking at Prairie Park in terms of their streets because it is private? Is that correct? Okay.
What was the question?
I'm sorry.
Correct.
I just asked Mr. Janik, I said, just for my own clarification, so the village is not monitoring parking at Prairie Park because they are private streets?
I believe the police chief would be better.
That is correct. It's not a village roadway. We do not regulate overnight parking. The only thing we would regulate is fire lanes and handicap parking, and any agreement that the village would enter into with the property owners.
So does that make this a moot point?
Sounds like
It could. I think, let's take a look at this very, very closely.
I would caution the group, again, as I mentioned, at Prairie Park, you have a full-width street, and whatever arrangement they have, you have bidirectional flow. These individuals are taking a substandard street, making it one direction, and adding on-street parking. They're asking you for that variance. The variance here is to go to a substandard street that is a result of on-street parking.
Well, that's also visible in the picture here. You can see it's two lanes except where the parking is, and then it's widened for the parking. And relative to Cedar Run, I live there. I lived there. It's tight. But what we're looking for is, well, if they need on-street parking, they is the board clear on this right now? I generally don't like to go first on these issues, but I'll tell you right now, my feeling is to not, I'm not in favor of the on-street parking. I did live in Cedar Run, and if these streets are that dimension, that's not going to work.
So are the streets at Cedar Run two-way?
Unless you have somebody parking there.
Right.
And then they're one-way.
Right. So, you know, to the chief's point, I mean, so the typical right-of-way section for a private roadway is 40 feet.
And yours is?
Ours would be 38 feet. So our solution for that slightly narrower roadway is to make it one directional, so you would not have cars coming into conflict with one another and trying to pass. So you're taking what would amount to basically the full right-of-way section and turn it into a one-way street to accommodate the on-street parking. So I can't say what the chief would do if he was responding to emergency. He certainly would have the right to go any direction that he so desired, right? But the concept here with normal vehicle flow is to have it go one direction. Therefore, you're not running into vehicles coming, you know, into conflict, trying to pass each other on a slightly narrower right-of-way section. Therefore, you would end up, as I said in my presentation, you would end up with about 20 to 21 feet of clear pavement for a single vehicle to get down a street with a vehicle parked. So you would have 31 feet, 10 feet being occupied by a parked vehicle, and 20 to 21 feet for a vehicle to maneuver down the street.
These units are all two-car?
Yes.
So why are we anticipating all this on-street parking? Where's it coming from?
Well, because your code requires a certain amount of parking. So your code requires 2 garage parking spots, 2 guest parking spots in the driveway behind the unit, and additional overflow parking.
Okay, but if I'm a normal family with 2 cars, I mean, you're whatever. You get my point.
Yes.
I don't think this is going to be
Your kids drive
pandemonium.
yet?
What's that?
Kids drive yet?
No, but I mean, I don't see this being I don't see this being a big kid-centric place anyways, with
No,
a
I
family
see
with
that.
16-year-olds and 4 cars.
Mr. Hoffman?
This is empty nesters or younger, you know, professionals.
Trustee Papantos, you have something?
Thank you. On the diagram that we're looking at, the circular part I can see being one way, but for the units in the back, the Seaboard Townhomes?
Right. So yes.
That has to be two-way back
Right.
into that section in order to get in and out, correct?
Right, and the conflict with the parking is all on the circular drive with the exception of, obviously, here.
Which
So-
also would be a conflict.
Right, so maybe, you know, for that standpoint, since you would have obviously ingress and egress, assuming that this connection remains an emergency contact point, maybe we have to relocate this parking here. What we've tried to do in order to open it up, as you can see, that we've tried to belly in the road profile to create some additional space there. But in that situation, what I just said about the one-way traffic would not be true in that instance, correct?
And then, obviously, in the far back, in order to get in and out of your unit, you
Right.
got to go back and forth.
Right.
Pardon me?
There's no street parking.
There's no street parking there?
Right.
I mean, I happen to live in a complex that allows street parking, and as President Horker said, it's not pleasant. I mean, our road, it may have been two-way, but if 2 people are coming at the same time and people are parked there, it's almost impossible. I would have to listen to our public safety personnel as to what they feel is best.
Do you need it on both sides of the street? Or
It
just
looks like he has one side.
Yeah, so we're just showing parking on, guest parking on one side of the street.
what's Cedar Run? Is that both sides?
No, it's one side.
And mine's one side.
I mean,
It's only one
my
side.
street has one-sided parking. It's not bedlam in there when people are in front of my neighbor's house.
I don't know how it. You guys are quiet.
It'll work with one way, right?
I think it will.
Yeah.
I'll pull the board.
In the event of an emergency, though.
Emergency anyway.
Let's see what everybody says. But, street parking, yes or no? And I'll go first this time. I'm no. Trustee Kruger,
No.
Trustee Vogel,
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
No.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Even.
Yeah. That's how that goes. Clear direction, eh? I think it does give them enough room to start. Would you agree? I mean, the concept is acceptable to the board. You have direction on the drive-through or the throughways. The hanging point is the street parking. I don't know, work with staff and see how that goes.
I mean,
Sorry,
I think
I
the
can't be more
direction,
definitive
no,
at the moment.
and I appreciate you asking the question, and I think it sets us out in the direction that we knew we were heading in anyways, right?
Okay.
You know, in fact, I was talking with the chief before I came up here about, you know, that assuming that you were all in favor of the concept, sort of the next plan for us is to sit down with a big size plan and get out a red pencil and let's start figuring how we start to solve some of the issues and concerns he has, because obviously, you know, we all want to be able to stand in front of you, asking you to vote in favor of a project that he's supportive and that he feels that he can service. I mean, that's obviously important, right? So we'll start to tackle some of these issues. So I really thank you so much for your thoughtful input and discussion and
Thank you for your
thoughts.
time.
Thank you.
Are we done on our end of this, Mr. Spondelis?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Official communications, Clerk Simpson,
Yes, I have official communication.
what have you got?
Does anybody else want to, oh, here, I got it.
All I got is the bills.
For the April 2nd, 2019 consolidated election, tomorrow, March 5th, is the last day to register to vote by paper. Online voter registration ends March 17th. The last day to request a mail ballot is March 28th. Grace period registration and voting runs March 6th through April 1st. Early voting will take place March 18th to April 1st. The Wheeling location for both grace period and early voting is the George and Angela Petresky Center at 199 North First Street, which happens to be the old Wheeling Senior Center. For more information, go to www.cookcountyclerk.com.
Excuse me, Clerk Simpson, that's the Patarakis Center.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Any other questions or comments from the board? Trustee Papantos.
First of all, once again, I'd like to thank managers Fondelis and Public Works Director Janik and Assistant Director Bezier. I don't think people realize what a waste management contract entails. It is a big deal, and it services everybody in this village. For obvious reasons, contracts such as this are exclusionary. We can't have, and we don't want to have, 8 different vendors going down the street. I don't want to be behind the, 5 different garbage trucks on a regular basis, stopping and having every neighbor with different pickup dates. This is huge. It doesn't happen overnight, and it does benefit absolutely every resident and business in this town, and I thank you for your hard work on that. As far as the village lending anybody money at a no-interest loan, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Needless to say, we would not even begin to consider that. And as far as being a conspiracy theorist and not knowing what's going on at that airport, I just want to make it clear. I have attended every airport meeting since 2014, including the first joint meeting that was laid out very specifically with runway expansion and only runway expansion. When you make comments about what the board knows and what homework they've done, try to find out what homework the board's done. Don't just talk to the people at the airport who will tell you what they want you to hear. Also consider the fact that any approval of an expansion of a runway is going to immediately devalue any home, business, et cetera, that would be affected, even if it doesn't happen for 10 years down the line. Because who's going to want to buy that house? Who's going to want to buy that business? Who is going to go farther as far as that goes? And when my house or somebody else's is devalued, guess what? The tax levy stays the same. So the rest of the community can pay a higher real estate tax to make up the difference. When you make the comments, please find out both sides of the story. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Just one quick one.
Trustee Lang?
Mr. Belogorski is not here anymore, but I did ask the CMT, our consultant, about having citizens as part of the SIG groups. And they said whereas it is mentioned, it wasn't a requirement. And I suggested that they add citizens to the upcoming SIG group, and I'm only one vote. And I was able to get just my own 2 cents in, and no one else was interested. So for his information, that, yeah, it was asked on behalf of Wheeling to add citizens to the SIG group.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Anyone else? Trustee Kruger?
Thanks, President Horker. I just want to mention this because I realize that I will, as I've already notified the clerk and the president, that I will not be at the next meeting on March 18th, but I'm going to promote the St. Baldrick's event again. I'm just looking at their page right now, and it's really low. We need some people to donate here. Anyway, the event is on March 30th from noon until 4 p.m. at White Eagle, 6839 North Milwaukee Avenue in Niles. You can certainly just go to stbaldricks.org and search Wheeling, and you'll find Wheeling Firefighters Local 3079. Give a couple bucks to some guys that are doing something great for kids' cancer research and shaving their heads. So come out to the event, go to the link, give a little dough. Thanks so much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. If there are no other comments, you have before you the bills for February 14th through February 27th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel.
Second.
Second, Trustee Kruger. Roll call.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, we do have an executive session this evening for the purposes of pending probable and/or imminent litigation. I need a motion to recess into executive session.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Lang, roll call.
Trustee
Yes.
Vogel? Trustee Lang? Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, sorry. You're gone. Meeting is recessed until we come back from executive session. You're welcome to stay. Certainly don't have to.
Chief Dunn?
You know, she was talking about Wilson.
Director Monishane?